I want to start out by on December 28th, 1987, that was my recovery date. And that's our clean time, how much time I've had clean. And on October 18th of 1987, my wife at the time was having my first daughter, and I have 5 kids. And I was in the hospital delivery room, and the only way I could get through that delivery is to have my cocaine dealer put an 8-ball of cocaine in my glove compartment, and I held my child for the first time strung out heavily on cocaine. And that was the moment God used to burn his way into my heart and into my soul to say that you're not alone. You need to do something. And I stand here today, and I've told this story many times, and I still get emotional about it. I am not proud of that fact. I am not proud of it. But I am also no longer ashamed. And there's a big difference, a big difference. So, in these 23 years, I put together a little list of what I've learned in recovery over the years. And these go kind of quickly. The further I get into recovery, the less I know. Things are not as black and white as I once thought. The gray area always expanding, up here too as well. And fishing is best when you're not concerned about catching anything. And gratitude is the antidote for the poison of resentment. There's no such thing as quality time with your children. That's a big thing in the U.S., having quality time. There is only quantity. And don't let a kid with a stomach flu sleep on the top bunk. Oh, very important lesson there, very important. Incredible wisdom and power in the experience, strength, and hope in just one person's recovery. And you let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. I can get through anything one day at a time. I didn't get sober to be miserable. And I'm too old to fish now while standing on slippery rocks. I've also learned that the hard way. Live in the moment, one day at a time. When in doubt about what to do next, what do? Read it. The next right thing. Not too difficult, is it? Sometimes it's difficult. And I can get bitter or better. The choice is mine. So the recent trial, I've had all these years of recovery, and you'll notice that I might be grabbing a sip of water here and there, and this will make sense why I'm doing that, is that this year, last time at this year, I was in the hospital between 2 inpatient stays of chemotherapy and 36 radiation treatments for stage 4 cancer of the tongue. And what I learned through that was that the tools of recovery helped me greatly get through that. And so I'm also incredibly blessed to stand before you today, cancer of the tongue, and here I am speaking. And praise God, there is no sign of cancer in my system whatsoever, less than a year later. Thank you. And what did I learn from that? I learned more so, we were living one day at a time, to take each moment as they come. Each moment is precious. And to ask for help. If I'm having trouble asking for help, I got to figure out why. Because I may be depriving someone else an opportunity to give something back to me. And then I also learned that it's important, and this was kind of a whispering from my higher power, that Philip, he said, let me love you through those that surround you. Because I have 5 children, and what you're going to see next is a picture of my daughter and son about 9 years ago. And my son, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He has the same reaction I have the same reaction he does when someone tries to love me. Click now. This is when it clicks. And there it is. That's Samantha and that's Matthew. And I have that same reaction when I try to let people help me. And so this whole idea, though, of recovery is that people are geared to give back, to serve, to help others. And oftentimes the people we're giving, is it easier for you to be Samantha in this picture or to be Matthew? And a lot of times I think it's easier to be Samantha, isn't it? You're in control. And for me, I have Matthew's reaction. Stay away from me. So you ready to get into, those are some kind of personal background. And some of the historical context in the United States is about, in 1935, when AA was formed, a recovery community materialized. And they were trying to help themselves, and it was the first time in ever that this type of movement had started. And the treatment community materialized out of the recovery community. They were finding there were people detoxing from alcohol and other things that they couldn't help, so they went to the medical community, and treatment community was born from there. Over the years, the two communities became separated or divorced from one another, in the words of Bill White, who wrote the letter earlier. Recovery community organizations like CCAR bridge that gap, and they serve to bring recovery principles back into treatment, and also to make that bridge for people leaving treatment to get into recovery. It makes no sense to invest in a treatment episode 10, 15, 28 days and send them right back to where they came from without any support. What happens? They go back to drinking or using, right? There has to be some kind of support, some kind of wraparound services, if you will. And we'll talk a little bit about what those we have developed in Connecticut and are blossoming all over America. This is what we'd like to see again, that we all work together. Isn't that really the way? The book that I recommend, this is written by Bill White, it's called Slaying the Dragon. Where's Michaela? Yeah, Slaying the Dragon. I don't know if we want to slay it. But that is a picture of a temperance league in the late 1800s in America, and there's a sign over them. Can you see what the sign says? No, I didn't think so. But the law must recognize a leading fact. Medical, not penal treatment reforms the drunkard. And in the United States, we look at this and say, in 120 years, has anything really changed all that much? Because we still have, our prisons are overflowing. The estimate is 70 to 80% conservatively are there on an alcohol or drug-related offense. 70 to 80%. Do we still, as a system, as society, throw people into prison instead of providing them the treatment and help they need? Not to say they're not accountable, but it's something that we look at. So that's some historical perspective. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about CCAR, and that's our acronym. Before I do that, I told you I like to fish. I'm just with a little story. I have a buddy, Arno. He has one eye, half a foot. He lost that in an incredible plane accident that he was rescued from, and I'll talk just an incredible story. But he and I like to go to the shores of Cape Cod and fish. And Cape Cod is in Massachusetts, way on the end, and this is an actual picture there. And one day during October, when the striped bass and the bluefish are really running, we went out there and parked our truck on the beach, and the wind was howling. I mean, you're talking 50 miles, 60 miles an hour, and the water was rolling past the point. Huge waves, as high as the ceiling, and the foamers would come over the beach, and the truck was shaking, the wind was rattling so hard, and Arno and I are brilliant fishermen. We really are. And there was only one other truck on the point, and we looked at each other, and I said, I'm not going out there. And he says, me either. And he turned on the music, and we're like, okay, we'll just watch these waves. It was spectacular. One other truck. This guy must have been 85 years old, and he struggles against the wind, and the wind bangs the door shut. And he grabs his fishing rod off the back of the truck. And Arno says to me, oh, great, we're going to have to go save him. And then what he does is he walks up to the edge, and usually on the beach, it's a gradual slope, but there was a channel. and there was like a 6 or 8 foot drop into this river of water that's just streaming by. And he's going up to the edge like this, and we're going, oh, great. And then he flips his rod and he casts from me to right here. He just goes, ugh. And his lure hit the water, and he goes, bang! Fish on! Now I told you Arno and I are brilliant, right? So we looked at each other and said, let's go! And we went out there, and first cast, fish after fish. We're talking bluefish this big. No, I mean, they were big fish. And we had striped bass, one after another. The seals were there. And as guys saw us coming and catching fish, they stopped. They got out. They braved the weather, and they started fishing too. At CCAR, we had a man who was a pioneer, Bob Savage, who was willing to test those waters. He wanted to see if the recovery community could be organized, because he worked for the state for many years, and they were always making decisions about people in recovery without them at the table. And he said, why are we making all these decisions when they're not at the table? Can I get them to the table? And he did. And I dare say that that's starting to happen here in Cardiff. We look to our leaders. Every cause needs a champion. Everyone needs someone to go out there and test the waters, to start the fishing. Make sense? You with me so far?